They said the body was too burned to identify, but I knew the ring. I'd bought it myself. Marla died in a cabin fire 7 days ago. At least, that's what everyone said. Fire chief, coroner, her mother, me. And for a while, I believed it. You have to. It's the only way you get through the hours without clawing your own skin off. But then she came home. She didn't knock. She just walked in. I was in the kitchen, standing in front of the sink, watching a thunderstorm roll in over the lake. I had the lights off. I liked it that way. The dark was honest. No photographs staring at me. No pity in the furniture. And then the front door creaked. I thought I'd imagined it. Even when I heard footsteps, I didn't move. My body wouldn't let me. I turned my head just enough to see a silhouette enter the room behind me. Slender, familiar. My mouth went dry. She said, "Hey, babe," like it was any other Tuesday. I turned, and there she was. Same green sweater, same jeans, same copper hair, braided over her shoulder the way she used to do it when she was nervous. I hadn't seen that braid in weeks. I should have screamed. I should have run. I didn't. Instead, I whispered, "Marla," like an idiot, like a child waking up from a bad dream and finding the boogeyman smiling back. She smiled, wide and bright, but her eyes didn't match the smile. That was the first thing. The second, she didn't blink for too long. I don't know how else to describe it. She stared, smile unmoving, and blinked maybe once every 30 seconds. I don't even know if that's human. But back then, I didn't want to know. I wanted to believe. I stepped closer. I reached out. I touched her cheek, and it was cold. Not, I just came in from the rain, cold. Funeral parlor, cold. Skin that doesn't warm when you press your palm against it. Still, I held her. I kissed her. And I cried. She didn't. The days that followed were worse than the grief, because now I was trapped in a lie I wanted to believe, even while the truth kept bleeding through the cracks. She remembered our house, our life, the names of my co-workers. She made my coffee right. She used my toothbrush when she thought I wouldn't notice. But every so often, she'd do something wrong. Not wrong like making mistakes. Wrong like the bones beneath her skin didn't remember how to be human. She moved stiffly in the morning, like she had to remember how to walk. Sometimes her limbs twitched in her sleep like something was crawling inside her nerves. I found her standing in front of the mirror one night, not moving, not even breathing, just watching herself, face slack, mouth slightly open. She didn't notice me until I said her name, and then she flinched hard. Her whole body jerked like I'd shouted a gunshot. Then she smiled and said, "Didn't hear you come in." But she was lying. Her reflection blinked a moment after she did. I started sleeping with the hallway light on and a knife under the mattress. She tried to seduce me on the 5th night. That was the night I knew for sure something was wrong. We were on the couch. She leaned in, kissed my neck, whispered, "I missed you," through clenched teeth. But I saw it, just for a second. When she pulled back, she smiled, and the skin around her mouth wrinkled wrong, like something beneath her face had pushed outward for a moment and pulled the mask with it. I made an excuse, said I was tired. She didn't push, she just stared. I went to bed alone that night, but she didn't. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to find her sitting at the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes locked on the wall. She didn't turn when I said her name. She just started humming. A lullaby, one I hadn't heard since our first year together, but she got the words wrong, forgot the second verse, repeated the same line over and over, like a record skipping in a locked room. I watched her until she finally laid down, and when she closed her eyes, she smiled again. The knife stayed under the pillow that night. I started testing her, little things at first. I'd show her photos and ask, what were we doing here? She always had an answer, but it wasn't hers. She'd describe events I remembered differently. I asked about our first date. She described a night that never happened. I asked about her favorite song. She named one she used to hate. Worst of all, she flinched whenever I said her name too suddenly, like it wasn't really hers, like someone was using it. I found the old videotapes on day 6. I don't know what made me check. Maybe I was looking for proof. Maybe I just needed to see her again, the real Marla, the one who'd cry during thunderstorms and laugh when she burned pancakes. I found a tape from our trip to Big Sur, the one where she lost her sandals and cut her foot on driftwood. She was dancing barefoot in the sand, holding a bottle of wine. I paused it on her face. Then I looked across the room. She was in the kitchen, making tea, but not like Marla used to. No humming, no movement in her hips, just silent, mechanical grace. I looked at the screen again, then back to her, and I swear to you, they weren't the same person. That night it thundered. I pretended to sleep. She crawled into bed, curled against my back, and whispered something I'll never forget. It wasn't a language I knew, not even one I could mimic. It was like hearing grief sing. But then she said it, my name, like it hurt her to say it. And in that whisper, I heard something else, a second voice beneath hers, not layered, buried, like something beneath the skin was mouthing the words too. I slept in my truck after that, told her I was working nights again. She smiled like she understood, and as I drove away that first night, I looked in the rearview mirror. She was standing in the window, and even though her mouth didn't move, I swear, I saw her reflection smile, but she didn't. I slept in the truck for 3 nights, didn't shower, didn't eat much, just drank bad gas station coffee and left the engine running in case I had to drive away in the dark. Every morning I'd come back, pretend everything was normal. Marla, the thing wearing Marla, always greeted me with a smile. Always. But I started noticing little cracks. I'd come home to find drawers open that I knew I'd closed, muddy footprints that didn't match mine, claw marks in the drywall behind the refrigerator, always in places no one should be able to reach. I asked her about them. She just tilted her head and said, "We've had raccoons before, haven't we?" Marla was terrified of raccoons. Day 4, I came home and found her in the basement. She never went down there. She hated it. Too cold, too damp, reminded her of her father's root cellar. But that day, the light was on and the door was open. She was standing barefoot on the concrete floor, head tilted, looking at the far wall. She didn't turn when I came down the stairs. I asked, "What are you doing down here?" She answered, "Listening." To what? She didn't respond, just smiled and pressed her ear to the wall like it was whispering secrets. I left the house that night before sundown. I started dreaming of her skin, not her, just the skin, hanging in the closet, crawling across the ceiling, writhing on the floor like it missed the bones it used to wear. One night, I woke up with the feeling something was watching me. I was in the truck, parked on the bluff behind our house. When I looked out the window, she was there, standing barefoot in the gravel, white nightgown brushing her ankles, smiling, not moving. She stood there until the sun came up. I don't think she blinked once. I bought cameras, motion sensors. Thought maybe I was losing it. Maybe I needed proof or a reason to run. I set them up around the house, bedroom, living room, front porch, one above the basement steps. That night, I pretended to sleep in bed. I felt her crawl in beside me, heard her breathing. It was wrong, too wet, like something trying to mimic lungs. She whispered, "I love you," in the voice of my mother. Then, "Don't be afraid," in mine. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I checked the footage, and what I saw made me vomit. At 2:03 a.m., she walked to the basement door, paused, then bent backward at the waist until her head was upside down, staring straight at the camera. She stayed like that for 2 minutes. Then her mouth opened, wide, too wide. Something pressed against the inside of her throat. A second face, pushing forward beneath the skin like it wanted out. At 2:05, she stood upright and walked calmly back upstairs. That was the last night I stayed in the house. I went back to the cabin where she died. Didn't tell anyone. Just drove for 3 hours in silence, windows down, hoping the wind would shake loose whatever part of my soul was clinging to hope. The cabin was still a ruin. Black beams, melted roof, ash thick enough to sink in. The pine trees around it were scorched to the root. The air still smelled of charred meat. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe closure. Maybe her bones. Maybe nothing at all. But then I found it. There was a crawl space under the floorboards. The floor had partially collapsed, just enough to reveal what looked like a pit. I dropped into it with a flashlight and a crowbar. It wasn't a pit. It was a burial. About 4 feet down, I hit something soft, not dirt, flesh. I scraped away layers of ash and found what looked like folded skin, human, charred, twisted like laundry soaked in blood. At the center of it, her face, pressed flat, like it had been peeled off and discarded, eyes still open, lips pulled back in a death grin. I touched it, and the whole thing twitched. I drove back in a fever dream. Didn't speak, didn't scream, just clenched the steering wheel until my fingers went numb. When I got home, she was on the porch, waiting, smiling. She said, "You look tired." I didn't respond, just walked past her, into the bathroom, locked the door, and cried. Not because I was afraid anymore, because I knew. Whatever was wearing my wife wasn't done with me yet. Later that night, I heard her whispering in the living room. I peeked through the door. She was kneeling on the carpet, talking to something I couldn't see. At first, I thought it was a phone call, until I saw her tongue. It was moving on its own, writhing in and out of her mouth like a worm searching for air. Her jaw didn't move, her lips stayed closed, but her tongue kept twitching and spelling names in the air. Some of them I recognized, some I wish I hadn't. I went back to the truck. I didn't sleep. In the morning, she left something on the kitchen table, a gift wrapped in white cloth, tied with her hair. I opened it. Inside was my wedding ring, the real one, the one I'd left on her burned body before they closed the casket, the one I buried with her. I'm not ashamed to say I screamed. I didn't care who heard, didn't care if she saw. I ran outside, grabbed the axe from the shed, and turned to face the house. But she was already there, standing in the doorway, smiling. Behind her eyes, something moved, like fingers pressed against a veil of meat. I didn't come back right away. After the wedding ring, I left, not just the house. I drove past the state line and slept in rest stops with a knife taped beneath my coat. I stopped answering calls, disconnected the landline, bought a new phone and never gave it my number. I stayed gone for 10 days, no nightmares, no visions, and then she left a voicemail. The voice wasn't hers, not at first. It was static, breathing, something wet and deep. But under that, her laugh, just a little. The way she used to laugh when I'd forget the laundry or burn the toast. A real laugh. She said, "You're not safe out there." Then she said my name, and my ears bled. I tried to pretend none of it happened. I rented a small motel off Route 14, paid cash, bought a Bible, slept with it under my pillow. On the 4th night, someone knocked at my door. I didn't move, didn't speak. Then a voice said, "I'm sorry for the fire." I didn't mean to scream. My hands went numb. I grabbed the Bible, held it to my chest like a shield. The doorknob jiggled once. Then the voice said, "If you love me, you'll open the door." I didn't. I wouldn't. But something else did. The knob stopped moving, but the window slid open from the outside. I lunged forward and slammed it shut, but in that instant, I saw her. Halfway through the frame, naked, bones like sticks in a sack of skin. Her smile was still wide, but wrong now. stretched far too thin, like something wearing joy as a costume. She whispered, I wore her better than she ever did. And then she dropped from view. I didn't sleep again, didn't eat. I went back to the house, back to the basement. It had to end where it began. The basement was colder than I remembered. It stank, like rotting leather and moldy breath. I found her kneeling in the same corner she'd once pressed her ear to. She didn't move when I stepped behind her. She only said, It's louder now. I poured the gasoline in silence, salted the walls, marked the doorway with symbols I barely understood, copied from pages I found online, exorcisms that didn't care if you believed in them. She rose when the fire caught, didn't scream, just watched me. Her skin bubbled, her face melted away, and what was underneath was smiling too. I left her in the flames, watched the house collapse on itself, watched the sky turn black, but it wasn't over. The dreams came back first. Marla in the lake, hair drifting like seaweed, eyes full of dirt, crawling to shore without lungs, whispers in my mouth when I wake. Then, the sightings. A woman in a white nightgown seen walking along Route 14. A body exhumed from a cemetery with no skin, but a wedding ring inside its stomach. A motel window cracked open from the inside. I don't go home anymore. I don't have a home. I write this from a diner with no name, in a town that doesn't show up on maps. I use fake names. I carry 3 weapons, and I sleep under flickering neon. But sometimes, just sometimes, I see her reflection in the glass before I see my own. She still wears that smile, like she's proud of what she became. They say grief changes you. I say it hollows you out, just enough for something else to crawl in. So if someone you love dies tragically, burns, drowns, vanishes, and comes back smiling, do not open the door. If you love her, don't look her in the eyes. If you're still breathing, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you dare. There are plenty more nightmares waiting for you. And whatever you do, don't forget to ring the bell. It's the only way you'll hear the warnings in time.